This is Chapter 2, Parnassus on Wheels. It was a fine, crisp morning in fall. October, I dare say, and I was in the kitchen coring apples for applesauce. We were going to have a pork roast for dinner, with boiled potatoes and what Andrew calls Van Dyke brown gravy. Andrew had driven over to town to get some flour and feed and wouldn't be back until noon. Being a Monday, Mrs. McNally, the washerwoman, had come over to take care of the washing. I remember I was just on my way out to the wood pile for a few sticks of birch when I heard wheels turning at the gate. There was one of the fattest white horses I ever saw, and a queer wagon shaped like a van. A funny-looking little man with a red beard leaned forward from the seat and said something. I didn't hear what it was. I was looking at that preposterous wagon of his. It was colored a pale robin's egg blue, and on the side in big scarlet letters was printed, R. Mifflin's Travelin' Parnassus, good books for sale, Shakespeare, Charles Lamb, R.L.S. Hazlitt, and all others. Under the wagon in slings hung what looked like a tent, together with a lantern, a bucket, and other small things. The van had a raised skylight on the roof, something like an old-fashioned trolley car, and from one corner went up to a stove pipe. At the back was a door with little windows on each side and a flight of steps leading up to it. As I stood looking at this queer turnout, the little reddish man climbed down from in front and stood watching me. His face was a comic mixture of pleasant drollery and a sort of weather-beaten cynicism. He had a neat little russet beard and a shabby Norfolk jacket. His head was very bald. "Is this where Andrew McGull lives?" he said. I admitted it. "But he's away till noon," I added. "He'll be back then. There's roast pork for dinner." "And applesauce?" said the little man. "Applesauce and brown gravy," I said. "That's why I'm sure he'll be home on time. Sometimes he's late when there's boiled dinner, but never on roast pork days. Andrew would never do for a rabbi." A sudden suspicion struck me. "You're not another publisher, are you?" I cried. "What do you want with Andrew?" "I was wondering whether he wouldn't buy this outfit," said the little man, including, with a wave of his hand, both van and white horse. As he spoke, he released a hook somewhere and raised the whole side of the wagon like a flap. Some kind of catch clicked, and flap remained up like a roof, displaying nothing but books, rows and rows of them. The flank of his van was nothing but a big bookcase. Shelves stood above shelves, all of them full of books, both old and new. As I stood gazing, he pulled out a printed card from somewhere and gave it to me. "Roger Mifflin's Travelin' Parnassus. Worthy friends my wain doth hold, many a book, both new and old. Books, the truest friends of man, fill this rolling caravan. Books to satisfy all uses, golden lyrics of the muses, books on cooking and farming, novels passionate and charming, every kind for every need, so that he who buys may read. What librarian can surpass us? Mifflin's Travelling Parnassus by R. Mifflin, Proprietor, Star Job Print, Celeryville, VA." While I was chuckling over this, he had raised a similar flap on the other side of the Parnassus, which revealed still more shelves loaded with books. I'm afraid I was severely practical by nature. "Well," I said, "I should think you would need a pretty stout steed to lug that load along. It must weigh more than a coal wagon." "Oh, Peg can manage it all right," he said. "We don't travel very fast. But look here, I want to sell out. Do you suppose your husband would buy the outfit, Parnassus, Pegasus, and all? Books, isn't he?" "Hold on a minute," I said. "Andrew's my brother, not my husband, and he's altogether too fond of books. Books'll be the ruin of this farm pretty soon. He's mooning about over his books like a sitting hand about half the time, when he ought to be mending harness. Lord, if he saw this wagon load of yours, he'd be unsettled for a week. I'd have to stop the postman down the road and take all the publishers' catalogues out of my mail so Andrew don't see 'em. I'm mighty glad he's not here just now, I can tell you. I'm not literary, as I said before, but I'm human enough to like a good book. And my eye was running along those shelves as I spoke. He certainly had a pretty miscellaneous collection. I noticed poetry, essays, novels, cookbooks, juveniles, cookbooks, school books, Bibles and whatnot, all jumbled together. Well, see here, said the little man. And about this time I noticed that he had the bright eyes of a fanatic. I've been cruising with this Parnassus going on 7 years. I've covered the territory from Florida to Maine, and I reckon I've injected about as much good literature into the countryside as ever old Doc Elliot did with his 5-foot shelf. I want to sell out now. I'm going to write a book about literature among the farmers, and I want to settle out with my brother in Brooklyn and write it. I've got a sack full of notes for it. I guess I'll just stick around until Mr. McGill gets home and see if he won't buy me out. I'll sell the whole concern, horse, wagon, books, $400. I've read Andrew McGill's stuff, and I reckon the proposition will interest him. I've had more fun with this Parnassus than a barrel of monkeys. I used to be a school teacher till my health broke down. Then I took this up, and I've made more than expenses, and I've had the time of my life. Well, Mr. Mifflin, I said, if you want to stay around, I guess I can't stop you. But I'm sorry you and your old Parnassus ever came this way. I turned on my heel and went back into the kitchen. I knew pretty well that Andrew would go up in the air when he saw that wagon load of books and one of those crazy cards with Mr. Mifflin's poetry on it. I must confess I was terribly upset. Andrew is just as unpractical and fanciful as a young girl, always dreaming of new adventures and rambles across the country. If he ever saw that traveling Parnassus, he'd fall for it like a snap. And I knew Mr. Decameron was after him for a new book already. I'd intercepted one of his letters suggesting another happiness and hayseed trip just a few weeks before. Andrew was away when the letter came. I had a suspicion what was in it, so I opened it, read it, and, well, burnt it. Heavens, as though Andrew didn't have enough to do without mooning down the road like a tinker, just to write a book about it. As I worked around the kitchen, I could see Mr. Mifflin making himself at home. He unhitched his horse, tied her up to the fence, sat down by the wood pile, lit up a pipe. I could see I was in for it. By and by I couldn't stand it any longer. I went out to talk to that bald-headed peddler. See here, I said, you're a pretty cool fish to make yourself so easy in my yard. I tell you I don't want you around here, you and your traveling Parcheesi. Suppose you clear out of here before my brother gets back and don't be breaking up our happy family. Miss McGill, he said. The man had a pleasant way with him, too, darn him. His bright, twinkling eye and his silly little beard. I'm sure I don't want to be discourteous. If you move me on from here, of course I'll go. But I warn you, I shall lay in wait for Mr. McGill down the road. I'm here to sell this caravan of culture, and by the bones of Swinburne, I think your brother's the man to buy it. My blood was up now, and I'll admit that I had my next without proper calculation. Rather than have Andrew buy your old Parcheesi, I said, I'll buy it myself. I'll give you $300 for it. The little man's face brightened. He didn't either accept or decline my offer. I was frightened to death that he'd take me right on the nail and bang would go my 3 years of savings for a Ford. Come and have another look at her, he said. I must admit that Mr. Roger Mifflin had fixed up his van mighty comfortably inside. The body of the wagon was built out each side over the wheels, which gave it an unwieldy appearance, but made extra room for the bookshelves. This left an inside space about 5 feet 9 long. On one side he had a little oil stove, a flap table, and a cozy-looking bunk, above which was a kind of chest of drawers to hold clothes and such things, I suppose. On the other side, more bookshelves, a small table, and a little wicker easy-chair. Every possible inch of space seemed to be made useful in some way, for a shelf, or a hook, or a hanging cupboard, or something. Above the stove was a neat little row of pots and dishes and cooking usefuls. The raised skylight made it possible to just stand right in the center aisle of the van, and a little sliding window opened onto the driver's side and front. Altogether, it was a very neat affair. The windows in front and back were curtained, and a potted geranium stood on the diminutive shelf. I was amused to see a sandy Irish terrier curled up on a bright Mexican blanket in the bunk. Miss McGill. I couldn't sell Parnassus for less than $400. I put twice that much into her one time or another. She's built clean and solid all through. There's everything a man could need, from blankets to bouillon cubes. The whole thing is yours for $400, including the dog, cook stove, everything. Jib, boom, spanker. There's a tent in the sling underneath and an ice box. He pulled up a little trap door. And a tank of coal oil and Lord knows what all. She's as good as your yacht, but I'm tired of her. If you're so afraid of your brother taking a fancy to her, why don't you buy her yourself and go off on a lark? Make him stay home and mind the farm. Tell you what I'll do. I'll start you on the road myself, come with you the first day, and show you how it all works. You could have your time of your life in this thing, and give yourself a fine vacation. It would give your brother a good surprise, too. Why not? I don't know whether it was the neatness of his absurd little van, or the madness of the whole proposition, or just the desired adventure of my own, and play a trick on Andrew. But anyway, some extraordinary impulse seized me, and I roared with laughter. Right, I said, I'll do it. I, Helen McGill, in the 39th year of my age.